So the last step, we're just going to create those same measures that we did before. So if we go back to Power BI, or in Power BI, if we go back to this report section, this section on the side of the report, that's where you're actually going to pull stuff in. And you have the data, and you have the model. The model is where you link everything. So if we pull this in, let's actually maybe make a quick visual on this to kind of show everything in action. Okay, so if we just pull in, there's a lot of visual options over here, and we're not going to go through all of them, obviously, but we have, this is just a table. So let's bring in, let's bring in our geo. Let's start with geo or region, because that is easy here. So let's look at that on the rows. So we should be able to see region on the rows. Okay, great. So obviously we could bring in each of these values. We could bring in the revenue actuals to this, and then we could bring in our forecasted revenue into there as well, similar to what we did in the Excel. But we want to create measures for those that are going to be the exact same things, but it would be, like we know, it'll be easier to use in the long run. So let's create a new measure. It's right here at the top. So we're going to do this the same way, essentially the same way. So it's going to go right here, and we're going to say, call this revenue. There we go. Revenue variance. And it's going to be sum x. Oh, I've already misspelled revenue. Revenue variance, sum x, and we know that we're going to have our actuals table, and it's going to be our revenue actuals from our revenue actuals, and we want that to be take away from our forecast. Oh, uh-oh, pushed enter too soon. Doesn't like that. You can see there's an exclamation point telling us something's wrong here. So it's going to be revenue forecast, and then revenue forecast. Okay. So a bit of hygiene here. I like to create a table that houses all of my newly created metrics. That doesn't exist in PowerPivot, at least that I know of. Again, amateur here, but we can do it in Power BI. So what I'll do is I'll just do a new table, and I'll call that first column, I'll just name it anything right now. I'll call it key. Doesn't even matter at this point. So this new table is going to be called, right now it's called key, but actually I want that table to be called metrics. Okay, so we got a metrics table. And the reason I like to do that is so when I make metrics, like we just created a metric or a measure, I don't want it to be housed in other tables, whether it's dimension table or fact table. I like to see them all. I like to see everything I create in one place. So I wish PowerPivot did that. Again, maybe it does. I haven't found it. I haven't looked too hard, but now we can see, and I'm going to format this similar to PowerPivot. I'm going to format to in dollars. Oh, actually, you know what? That's the revenue. You know what? I already messed up here. So we actually don't, we want to call this revenue forecast. That's what we're trying to do. And we want to do, I'm just going to do this so that we already have it written. Okay, so revenue forecast, we're going to call that, we're going to put that there. So you can see that even though I initially named it revenue variance, and then I put this, I just renamed it, and it didn't create a new measure, it just changed that name. So I'm going to actually delete the only column in there that doesn't have anything. Let's hide it. Okay, So now we want to make a new measure that is forecast actuals, or revenue actuals. So let's do revenue actuals, and I just cut the other one out because I knew it was going to be wrong. So, and then I'm going to change this. So you can see where I'm changing this in the home table at the right. I want to drop that into my metrics because, again, me personally, I like to see everything that I've created in one spot. So let's format that to be in dollars and with no decimal points. Okay. So then we can bring this into our little chart here. Values here, values here. Power BI is a little different in how it treats dates. So as we bring in these dates, you can see the date hierarchy. Let's just bring in the date hierarchy, and it allows us to see. And then we actually want to see the values on the rows, similar to the way we did in PowerPivot. It's purely personal preference here. So obviously you can see there's no forecast and actuals. There's no forecast from 18 and 19. So you have 2020 is what we really care about. So okay, so we have these new metrics we created. We also created a variance. So we're going to do a dollar variance. So let's call that dollar variance. And this is, since we already created those measures, we don't have to do that formula again. We just do revenue actuals minus revenue. Oops, what did that do? Revenue actuals minus revenue forecast. Okay, and then again, so I don't know why maybe it's defaulting to dim date because I have highlighted dim date over here, but we just want to change that to metrics. This is also going to be in dollars because it's a dollar variance. Okay, it's a little bit slower in Power BI. So dollar, no decimals. And then the last one we wanted to create was, and so we can drag that in here too. Oops, where are we? Drag that in here too. So we have the dollar variance. Then we also wanted to create a percent variance. So same thing, percent variance, where we do our revenue actuals, and good thing we already created this, divided by our revenue forecast minus 1. We want to make it in the metrics table. It's a broken record at this point, but again, it's helped me, especially the bigger your model gets, the more organized you are, the happier you will be. So let's make that a percentage, and we don't care about decimals. And then we can simply bring that in, either dragging it or just clicking it, and it'll drop it in here. So there we go. So, well, obviously this could be infinity. We could do a if error, but that's basic stuff. We don't need to go over that. So that covers basically everything we just did in PowerPivot. We just recreated in Power BI.